Alrighty, artists, what we are going to focus on for this tutorial is how to essentially blend two pictures together through the use of layering, opacity, and some adjustments to your photographs. So if you look down at these three examples here, you'll see that it's not just one photo, it's two that are combined and blended together, like the lion in the sunset, the woman in the rainbow background, and the elephant in the monarch butterfly here. So before you even get started with this project, you'll need to select two images. What I would like you to do is start with an animal image and a landscape image. So for example, like the lion in the sunset. What I am going to show you is how to do this on Photoshop just by simply opening the app and clicking File New. And I would say that we can do a 5x7 again. Depending on the orientation, most of us will probably do the horizontal orientation over vertical, depending on what your image looks like. My landscape is more of a horizontal picture, so I'll be using that. So that'll change my width from 5x7 to 7x5 because I want it to be 7 inches wide, 5 inches tall. And we have to make sure we're on inches, not pixels. I can title this work Blending Two Images and my name. And then resolution you can leave at 200 pixels per inch. Leave it at RGB. The only time you would really change this is if you want to print your image. That's when you would use CMYK. For now, online image RGB is just fine. Your background contents you can leave as white. And then we can just click Create to start off with. Now, we have our background layer here. What I would like you to do first is just bring into the composition the background image of the landscape that you would like to use. So just like any other tutorial, we go to File, Place Embedded to find our image, and I have my very own folder for blending two images here. I'm going to work with a sunset and a tiger image. So I first want to drag the sunset image in by double clicking it or clicking once and clicking place, and that should drag it right into my document. So right away I am going to make sure that the size meets up with the size of my document by making it big enough there, and I can kind of move it around as well just by dragging it on the page. Once I'm ready to roll with that, I can click the little check mark at the top in the middle. And so that is my new layer here. And at this point, if you wanted to, you could make some edits, but I wouldn't jump too quickly with that. I would maybe make most of your edits after you're done adding your second image. So at this point, we need to then upload our other image. Hold on, I'm just getting rid of my other document that I was working on. So now I have to go to File, Place Embedded, and then find my second image of my animal. Double click or click once in place. And you have to be patient. That did take a minute, so remember, patience is key when working with Photoshop. Sometimes it works a little bit slower than expected. So now I have my tiger image, and obviously I can't see any of my background right now. A very easy way to see how I can kind of see through this image is changing the opacity, but I need to make sure that's big enough to cover my background where I would like it. I can center it more so, or I can put it off to the side. I'm going to put it a little bit off to the side here. And once I'm good with that, click the checkbox. We talk about this pretty often. In order to be able to edit a photograph, you need to rasterize it first, which changes it to an image that can be edited. So I can right-click, make sure I'm on my tiger layer. I can right-click and click Rasterize Layer, and it will be so much more easier to edit. Now, if I go to opacity here, and I kind of play around with this arrow, It's not doing a whole lot right now. Here we go. That can change how transparent the image is. So that's kind of cool to play around with. But you can do this after you erase some of this background. I kind of want to get rid of all this background so that my other picture shows through. So how do we do that? At this point, we are going to work with the eraser tool. So if we go over to the left side to our toolbar, we are going to find that eraser tool, right click, and we are going to go to our simple eraser tool. Now, if I start clicking automatically, that is way too bold of a line. So we want to kind of change our brush so that it's bigger and also that it has a feathered or kind of a more soft edge. So if we go up here to the top of Photoshop, underneath our toolbar, we've got our eraser. We can click the little drop down. You'll see a dot with a number under it. We can click the little arrow next to that, and the drop down brings you to the size of your eraser and also the hardness. So right now it's very, very hard edge, right? Edit, undo. If we want a soft edge, we can change that hardness and drag it all the way down so it's less hard. That'll make this a little bit easier to erase. Now, as far as size goes, I can make this pretty big because I'm getting rid of just this outside image here. So that's pretty good. At this point, I can click around and start essentially erasing that part of the background. And being very, very careful once I get to around the face of the tiger. I don't want to go too far in, otherwise it might get to be too much erasing. I can always click edit undo if there's any changes I made that I'm not liking. So went a little too far in for that one. So you can also kind of drag your eraser too if it works better that way. So click and drag around. But sometimes clicking works good too. So you can see each individual change that you make. It's looking pretty good. Now I just have to focus on the top. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. Make sure all this is erased. Cool. Now that I'm done erasing, I'm thinking that is looking pretty good. This is when you might start to play with that opacity again. So we can go over here, make sure we're on the tiger layer because that's the layer we are trying to edit. We can make this tiger blend into the background by making it a little bit more transparent. So what you're doing is you're dragging the opacity level down so it's not 100%. 50% is about half background, half image, right? We go all the way down, we completely have our image disappear. So if you want it to be very faint, the opacity can be super low, around 30%. If you want the tiger to be more prominent, you want that opacity to be above 50% so you can see more of that image. So you can have a little bit of fun with this. I kind of like it just barely showing through. That's kind of cool. So playing around with opacity is how you really make the image blend together, right? We already knew, how to remove a background for the most part, but at this point you're learning how to actually blend two images, so you have kind of that translucence, the transparency between the image and the background. So we're blending those two images together kind of softly. Once you're okay with how the opacity looks, you can always change some of the effects if you would like. So if you click that tiger layer, you can go to where it says normal, and you can actually go through all of these effects that might darken your image, color burn, linear burn, darker color, lighten, screen, color dodge, linear dodge, lighter color, overlay, soft light. Hard light is kind of cool. I really like that. It's almost bringing those dark parts of the tiger out. Vivid light, linear light, really cool. It almost looks more like a digital painting or something. Pin light, hard mix, difference, exclusion, subtract, divide, hue, saturation, color, luminosity. It's kind of a fun one too. I'm trying to remember which one I really liked. Hard light was really cool. So you can play around with those effects. And then we can go back to how we learned about editing photos, and we can create adjustment layers too after that. So we can add hue and saturation layers, adjustment layers, and then we can play around with the hue, so we can change the colors or the hues within our work. So that's kind of fun. Kind of like these pink tones. You can change the saturation, how bright those colors are. You can dull it down a little bit. You can play around with the lightness of the entire photo in general. I might leave it around the middle. You don't need to change that too much. So again, that adjustment layer is the circle at the bottom of the layer panel. That's half black, half white. If I click that, I can do hue and saturation is the one I just did. Or I can go to that brightness and contrast one like we did in past tutorials. I can change the brightness of my image, which kind of changes the lighting in the photo. I can play with contrast and have fun with that too. So again, you can use those adjustment layers just like you would to edit a photo. And once you are liking that, that is when you're kind of finished and you can save your image. You could try adding more pictures into this one if you'd like to kind of combine some. We could even put a person walking back here or something. I don't know. You're going to have a lot of fun with it. And the biggest thing, like if I'm looking at this and I'm seeing like, okay, see this little white part here, I don't really like that. If I want to go back and work with that eraser tool again after I've made all these changes, you need to make sure you go back to that tiger layer and then go back to your eraser, and you can continue making any necessary changes that you would like. So always make sure you're on the right layer when you are editing your image. It's so important in Photoshop. It's so easy to get lost in all of the different layers that you have, but you have to be on the right layer that you're editing in order to be successful. So it's really important that you're paying attention to those things. So at this point, I'm finished editing and blending my two images. Now I can save as, and I might again call this blending two images and then your name. If it's a working document that you'll come back to, save it as a Photoshop image. If you are done, which I am, I can save it as a JPEG and then upload that to Schoology when I am finished. So you can click Save, click OK, and voila, your image should be saved. So again, picking two photos, one of a landscape, one of an animal to start with, and then combining those two images. If you would like to bring in more images to test this out, let's say you have some extra time this week, this could be a really, really fun project to do with your own photos. Okay, what is more original than using your own photos for this? So you could bring in a self-portrait of you with some kind of background that you really like, maybe a place here in Door County that you love, or a place you've traveled to. You could do your own pets at home, things like that. So you can use, of course, all of these techniques with your own photos, and I think that's the most authentic way to do this. So start off with this tutorial, and then you can kind of expand on what you've learned with some new projects with your own photographs.